Hello, my name is Luke Mardigian. You are listening to Be Insured, where we talk about business, leadership, and insurance. That way, on your worst day, when you need it the most, you will be insured. On today's show, we're going to talk about college. Oh, why? I went through college already. No, we're talking about your kids. Is it wise to set aside money for their future? While most people desire to give their children a better life than they had, does that deplete them from taking ownership in large investments like a house, college, or seed money for a new business? The question I have for you is, has your banker ever asked you for your report card? And joining me today, my co-host for the day, for the next 4 episodes, is our new director of operations at the Mardigian Agency, Alick Nuremberg. Thanks for joining us, Alick.
Of course. Thank you, Luke. It's great to be here.
All right. Let's talk about this. College education. Let's talk about the future of education and the cost of it. According to a recent Forbes article, the cost of college education has risen 497% between 1985 and 2018. So from the time I was born, to age myself, until today, it's grown 500%. That's double the rate of inflation. It's about 8% a year, according to the Department of Education, or one of their sub-departments, but same thing. So what's that look like in real numbers? Well, in 1990, it cost $6,500 a year to go to college. In 2018, it was an average of $27,000. That means an undergraduate would cost around $120,000 a year in today's world. An undergraduate. Now, Alick, I know that you are a man of advanced education, Renaissance man. If for the people that you went to school with, $120,000, if you took it all out in student debt in today's world, how valuable is that degree?
Not as valuable as the cash value, in my opinion. There's a lot of things that set me up to where I didn't have to pay $120,000 for my education, and I took different avenues to make sure I achieved what I wanted to without having to pay out of my own pocket what it would have costed to make it to that point. But yeah, I mean, $120,000 is a lot of money, and it takes you a lot of places.
Well, let's just do some basic math for our listeners. If you took $120,000 and you invested it, every average of every 10 years, your money's going to double. So that means after 10 years, it's $240,000. Mm-hmm. After 20 years, it's $500,000. After 30 years, it's $1 million.
Yep.
So you could literally just not spend money on education and invest that exact same amount, and you would end up a millionaire. Right? Because the whole point let's go back to this. Like, what was the whole point originally? So let's go 1990, people paying $6,500 to go to college. What was the point of that? You paid $6,500 a year, $7,000. You could probably get a couple part-time jobs to pay for that. Right. Even with the rate of inflation, considering how much the dollar was worth back then, and that, minimum wage was probably like $3 or $4, something like that. You probably could still get a couple part-time jobs and pay for that out of pocket. The crazy thing is, if you came out with no student debt, you probably could go get a job for $30,000 or $40,000 a year. That's a pretty good ROI. You pay $7,000 for 4 years and you get $30,000 a year for the rest of your life or more. Yeah. Pretty good ROI, right? But it's not so much the case today.
No.
You spend $120,000 and, so if we're using the same numbers, you should be able to come out and get a job for like $200,000 a year.
You'd think.
Right?
Or you'd hope. Yeah.
How often do you see that?
Very rarely. Now you go and spend $130,000 on a 4-year education, and you have, a $600 to $800 a month payment. That's a quarter, maybe more, of a lot of people's payments coming right out of school. That's a significant amount of money.
Yep. And the cool part is, I guess it's not cool. It's bad. The bad part is you're going to come out making 40 or 50 probably right now.
Yep.
And so as parents, so I'm a parent of 3 sons. I have 3 sons. They're 11 at the time of this recording, 11, 9, and a newborn. And when I look at their future and what I want for them, right, the whole point is you send them to college so that they have the opportunity to do whatever they want, right? Because if you go get a business degree, I mean, you could take a business degree, become a teacher, you could become a cop, you could become a CEO of a business, you could become an executive at a Fortune 500 company. The sky's the limit, right? It's whatever you want to do. But in today's world, the bachelors are so common.
Yep.
Everyone's got them. That applies.
It's becoming the new associate's degree. You know, you got to have one almost to compete, and it's only going to get worse, I think.
I think so too, and I think the cost is going to get worse too. You know, I'm by no means a prophet, but I do anticipate some type of education bubble bursting, similar to the way the housing bubble bursted. I know there's a number of experts out there who say the same thing. The cost just cannot continue with how low the ROI is. And now with the COVID-19 pandemic, people are learning, they're paying $27,000 to learn online.
Right.
I remember when I was in high school, people who went to online colleges were like losers.
It was
like, oh, you went to an online college? Like, well, oh, you went to DeVry? You know, it's like, oh, you must be a loser. You couldn't get into a 4-year, you know.
Right.
And now literally Princeton is online.
Yeah.
Weird.
I think that's a transition we're going to start to see across the board too. You know, I mean, the whole pandemic thing, I think, has made that clear. It's getting cheaper for schools. They don't have to, that's less lights schools have to keep on. You know, they can cut costs this way and still deliver an education.
Yet they all raised their prices this year.
Right.
And that's probably why it's gonna be, you know, self-defeating at some point.
Yep.
If they don't adjust, if they don't pivot, someone is going to offer a product of similar quality that produces a similar or better result, and it's just free market economics, baby. Yep. You know, like I opened this up with, you know, my banker has never asked for my report card. It's just true. So if you are sending your kids to school to get jobs, and those jobs are intended to make them productive members of society where they can contribute something, and they are not able to really contribute, and they're not able to achieve the dreams that you had for them of purchasing a home, having a reliable vehicle, supporting their kids. I mean, gosh, my kids' football equipment costs like $400 this year. Not so, right? I mean, it's like super safe and all that, you know, like I got nice stuff for them, but still right. $400, like you can't do that on $40,000 a year.
No.
Like if that's all, if your household income's $40,000 and you're trying to get 2 kids through football, like $800 is what, a paycheck, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
So if that's your goal, then really should you be looking at getting them into a college and a report card, or should you be helping them with their adult report card?
Long term.
Which is their financial report card.
Right.
So let's say you do want to save for your kid's future.
Yeah.
You know, there's a government sponsored program in Michigan. It's the Michigan Education Savings Program. Mm-hmm. MESP, a 529 is how it's categorized in the tax world. I'm not a CPA or financial advisor, so these are just kind of layman's terms I'm throwing out there in case you don't know about them. And you can save up to $500,000 for each kid. Can't save any more than that, but you can save up to $500,000 for each kid. Well, that takes care of college, right? A couple times over.
If you can do that, making $40,000 a year.
Well, let's see. If a kid, let's say he goes to college when he's 18, so about 20 years, and you want to save $120,000 a year, you'd have to save right around $10,000 a year per kid.
Yeah.
So if you have 4 kids, then you'd make money just to send your kids to college.
Yeah.
So what are the advantages of the 529? It's tax deductible. The money's not taxed when it comes out. But one of the big downfalls of the 529 is that you can only apply it to qualifying expenses. This is a very narrow category of things like tuition at public or private institutions. Books. I don't think it pays for room.
I think
board.
It depends on the state, I think. Okay. There are some states with different expense regulations and things of that. I think an important thing to hit on is what happens if your kid decides not to go to college. What happens to that money? You're going to want to put it somewhere else or pull it out at some point.
Yeah, and there's some pretty severe limitations on what you can do with that money,
right?
Without having tax consequences. So yeah, good job. You saved $500,000. Oh, your kid doesn't want to go to college. They're a programming genius and they got hired by NASA out of high school.
Right. Here's your list of penalties you're going to pay.
Yeah. Or your kid gets a scholarship for sports,
right.
Or whatever. And now you got to pay penalties and tax it out. Or you can roll it over to another kid, and there's some other weird stuff like that. But the point is, this program is very restrictive.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my newborn son, Blaine, I don't know what 18 years from now, what university is going to look like.
Right.
I have no idea. I don't even know if they'll even exist.
Yeah.
If they do exist, they probably aren't going to look like they do today, right? Because we can't do what's happened over the past 30 years, this 500% increase. We can't do that again. That's outrageous. You're looking at almost $90,000 a year if that happens.
Right.
$90,000 a year. Here in mid-Michigan, I think the average income is like $37,000, $36,000 a year. So if 1 year at university is 3 times the average salary, that means that only the ultra wealthy will be sending their kids to college.
Yeah.
So unless you're a listener and you're one of the ultra wealthy, which I have a couple business propositions for you if you do, if you're not one of the ultra wealthy, then you are the commoner like us, so to speak, or the kids call them the poors now. If you're not ultra wealthy, you're poor. There are some alternative things that you can provide to your kids. So, Alick, you are a United States Marine Corps veteran, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long were you in the military?
About 4 years.
4 years. So
Yep.
you served for 4 years as a forward observer in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, communications.
And which is like science practically. That's not easy stuff.
I mean, loved every second of it too.
Yeah, well, you're a weirdo. So,
Yeah,
you went to the Marine Corps. So, the education that you've obtained since getting out of the Marine Corps, how much of that have you had to pay for?
Very little. I got a 4-year degree when I came out, a few associate's degrees. That was all paid for with my GI Bill. That you earn your GI Bill. It pays for 4 years of the most expensive public institution in your state. So all of my undergrad was paid for, and then part of my graduate that I'm currently working on was paid for also. I'm going to end up paying a little bit out of pocket for that, but for the most part, my $180,000 of education I've had is paid for by the government.
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you gave it 4 years of the prime years of your life, but you probably would have been dinking around anyways.
Yeah, it's definitely something I needed.
Yeah, I mean, the average 21-year-old is not thinking about their future. Let's just say that. So the military is an option. That's an alternative to saving. If your kids express interest in going to the military, phenomenal, great. What a great way to serve your country.
Right.
Another one is the skilled trades. I can't tell you how many people I know that work for General Motors. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank here. Their suppliers, one of their suppliers where they build like a part, like they build the dashboard of a Camaro and molds and all the random stuff that the suppliers make that GM has outsourced.
Yeah.
They cannot get skilled tradespeople. They have no tool and die makers. They have no one that they can hire. They would pay them $150,000 a year to work 40-hour work weeks as a tool and die person if they could find them, and they can't.
Yeah, with benefits.
With outrageous benefits, 401k matches, all the stuff that has gone away for most people. So skilled trade schools average, somewhere between $8,000 and $20,000 for a skilled trade school. Very reasonable, something you could save up for, something your kid could pay for.
Yeah, there's a lot of grants for those too. I mean, the federal and state grants where.
I can tell you right now, a heating and cooling company that we insure would pay for you to go get your certification today because they have more work than they have people. The third one is, these articulation agreements between local community colleges and universities. It's like a 3+1 program or 2+2. And where you just go to like a local community college, you pay their rates, which are, somewhere around $6, $7, $8,000 a year, depending on what your course load is.
Yep.
And then after that 2-year or 3-year stint, you go to the university for a year. So you're only paying that $27,000 for a year or whatever it is. I think MSU is like 35. Michigan State University is like 35 a year.
Yeah.
And then you get a degree as if you went there all 4 years.
Yep.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
But how are you going to save for all this stuff? Because the 529 will not always apply to all of these items, right? It's not going to always pay for a trade school or a certification as a mechanic, right? It's only at these universities, these institutions, as they call them. Well, I want to talk to you about a solution for you that gives your kids the flexibility and gives them an A+ on their financial report card. And you can start it right away, and you don't need to put $500,000 away between now and when they turn 18. You can put as little as $100 a month away, and it reaps massive rewards for them in the future because of the power of compounding interest. So what is this thing that I'm talking about? It's what we have done for our newborn son, Blaine. Thankfully, I got into the industry and have learned this. I missed a lot of the years of my older kids' lives. So it's nice to start fresh as opposed to at 8 or 9 years old like I did with them, because that's an extra decade, right?
Yeah, right.
And it is simple as a cash value life insurance policy that is in their name that they can access at any time for any reason, including buying a house, starting a business, paying for a wedding. And for Blaine, my son, $200 a month. ends with him having 40 grand for a house at age 28 and a millionaire at age 65. So do you think Blaine is going to have a leg up in life because he's going to have an A+ report card on his finances as an adult?
Absolutely.
For $200 a month.
Yeah.
If that's something you're interested in because you love your kids and you want to give them a leg up in life, you can reach us at the Mardigian Agency on Facebook and Instagram. And we'll see you next time on Be Insured.